I'm gonna be honest with you, in the hood, and it's like it's not cool to be smart. Let's just be honest. And especially, back then in a situation like people looking at you like you a nerd. And if you and like I said, it was a culture shock going from the middle class neighborhood to the hood, and it's like I'm still learning the dynamics of the area. Don't really know too much of the people, but I'm seeing like it's not cool to be smart, man. It's almost like it's almost like you gotta dumb yourself down. You don't have to, but it's like this pressure on you depending on your environment. So, like I said, I dumb myself down, and I said, hey, less pressure, go in these easy classes. And besides that, when I was in junior high. Hey, you know what it is, ladies and gentlemen? We are back for another LB Tales from the Hood, and it is story time. Alright, the name of this episode is called High School Blues. So, hopefully you've been following along in chronological order of my videos, but if not, right now the timeline is graduating from junior high school, going from the 8th grade to the 9th grade, of course, the beginning of high school, and I had moved from New York down to Virginia. Now, when we moved to Virginia, we ended up having to move into projects. I mean, my mom wasn't making that much money back then. I think she was making somewhere around $11,000 a year, she was saying, and after tax it ended up being like something like $9,000 or something like that. It wasn't that much money. I mean, even though it was back in like, the early 90s, it was something like 91, something like that, 1991. Still, there wasn't a lot of money there. So when we got there, we basically had to move to the projects. Now, when I was living in New York, I lived in a house in, a fairly middle-class neighborhood. So it was like a whole culture shock. I went from the middle-class neighborhood to now the hood, literally. And down in Virginia, their projects are a little different. It's not like here in New York, we have the high-rise buildings with maybe hundreds of families. It's a little different. Like, we had like 2 floors. We lived on the bottom floor. You had an upstairs. You had like 2 apartments, I think, on our floor, maybe 2 upstairs, something like that. I can't exactly remember, but it wasn't that many, in our building. But it is what it is. The projects, nonetheless, it's the hood. So it was a whole culture shock thing. So, first day of high school, my mother, she had to do what she had to do. I think at that point she was not, I can't remember if she was in the reserves or she went away, or no, actually she might have been working. But the point is, my grandmother was there with me. So she's the one who actually took me to her own high school. So, my grandmother being up in age, she's like, okay, she just took me there, and it was like, he's a big boy now. He could go in there, take care of things, go see the guidance counselor, straighten everything out. She just basically drove me up there, and it was kind of crazy. So it was crazy for the fact of this. When I was in junior high and I graduated from the 8th grade, I was actually the valedictorian of the 8th grade class. Now, if you saw my last video, like you should, if not, go back and watch it. But you would see that I was a class clown. But even though I was a class clown in 7th and 8th grade, I had everybody laughing all the time, the funny man and all that, I always got good grades. And, this is like I stress to my kids, yo, do good in school, get good grades. And I try to tell them now, don't be the class clown, don't be like dad, I tell them some stories sometimes, not just for entertainment, but as lessons like I do with this. I don't do this just, for entertainment. I mean, you get a laugh and you enjoy it, that's great, but I want people to take away a lesson from it. I don't just do this just to get up here, because I don't chase fame. I don't care about none of that. What I do care about is helping to change the world and sharing my stories, my life stories with people who, maybe it can help somebody else going through similar situations. So anyway, I'm coming off being valedictorian, top of my class, smart. And so when I get down to VA and they going to put me in classes, they put me in all advanced classes where I belong. So when I go to the guidance counselor office, I'm telling her, she's like, okay, we putting you in this and this and this. And basically, the last thing I should have had was control over that, because I said, you know what? I told her, I don't need to be in there. You need to demote me and put me in lower class. And she was like, but your grades dictate you need to be in the high. I said, nah. I said, to be honest with you, I just cheated. I was like, I really ain't know what I do. I lucked up. And she was like, you lucked up with grades like this? I just lucked up, And to be honest with you, they should have really, they should have been on top of that and be like, no, we're not doing that. They shouldn't listen to a kid. They was like, all right, he want to be in the lesser classes, we going to throw him in there. Now, the reason why I did that, it's kind of crazy. I was in a kind of crazy headspace. I was looking forward. Actually, it's a good thing. I guess there's a positive and negative with everything. Because if I stayed in New York, you know, they put me in private school, and you know, for certain reasons, you know, the issues in the junior high school I go into, IS 59, as far as my grades going down, it wasn't so much, you know, out of fear of my safety. It was like this. He's going down. We need to put him in a situation where he can thrive in an environment. And part of the reason we moved to VA was people was telling my mother, you know, you need to get him out of New York. It's kind of crazy. You know, he's going to high school now. Those years are rough. And me, I was just looking forward to rejoining my friends, because I had, you know, I met some cool people in the private school in junior high. But I'm like, look, all my friends, they were going to this high school called Andrew Jackson. So IS 59 is where I went to junior high for that 1 year before they transferred me over to private. But Andrew Jackson, that was really gladiator school. So a lot of my friends was going there, so I wasn't thinking about it being crazy and all that. I just wanted to rejoin my friends. So, you know, and I guess it's a blessing in disguise. You know, it was also a breeding ground, Andrew Jackson, for a lot of the future criminals of America. And hopefully they don't come forward, enough people see this video and they be like, he got slandered in the school. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? The high school, they changed the name now. They call it a magnet school. All I know, it was a magnet for trouble and problems. And it wasn't necessarily I was trying to gravitate toward the problems. Like I said, I wanted to go see my friends. But even if I ended up, because my grandmother told me, oh, they said to keep him in, if he's going to stay in New York, send him to, you know, private, send him to some type of Catholic high school or something. I was like, I'm not trying to do that. I just came out the Christian, you know, junior high. It was cool and everything. You know, we had Bible study and all that. You know, I was raised kind of in the church. So, I read the Bible like once or twice over. You know, I was familiar with scriptures, but I was like, yo, I'm ready to do some regular stuff, man. You got to put me back in the regular school. But anyway, and it was a lot of pressure. Like, one thing, you know, my grandmother, may she rest in peace, bless her soul, I love her. But, you know, let's say I mostly got all A's. But let's say I happened to get, let's say 5 A's and a B. You know, she would tell her friends, oh, you know, my grandson got all A's. And I would be telling her, Grandma, that's not true. I got a B. And she would, be right, you got all A's. And I just felt like it was a lot of pressure. So I was like, darn. I was like, okay. I was like, I did my thing. They know I'm smart. I know the work. Let me go ahead and just, you know, dumb it down basically a little bit. You know, and just an easier ride. But it wasn't just that. It was also because, I'm going to be honest with you, in the hood, and you know, it's like, it's not cool to be smart. Let's just be honest. And especially, you know, back then in a situation, like, people looking at you like you a nerd. And if you, and like I said, it was a culture shock going from the middle class neighborhood to the hood. And it's like I'm still learning the dynamics of the area. You know, don't really know too much of the people. But I'm seeing, like it's not cool to be smart, man. It's almost like, you know, it's almost like you gotta dumb yourself down. You don't have to, but it's like this pressure on you depending on your environment. So, like I said, I dumbed myself down, and I said, hey, less pressure, go in these easy classes. And besides that, when I was in junior high, I actually like to go to the library, and I was getting books, and I was researching high school material already. I was actually looking into some college material when I was in junior high. I'm just that type of dude. I would read advanced stuff. I always wanted to advance my mind, so I was like, I know all this stuff anyway, whatever. And back then, I didn't care about that. I was like, you know, I'm gonna get my grades regardless. But I was like, high school, whatever, man. I can cruise through it. I know the stuff, whatever. I'll figure out whatever else later on. So they put me in, you know, lower grades than what I was supposed to be in. Oh boy, was that a mistake? Because I remember one of the math classes they had put me in high school. When I was in there, this stuff was so easy. It was like baby stuff. I could basically blindfold myself, take the test, and still get an A. So I remember when we took a test, I had got 100 on it. I remember when the test came back, you know, the teacher was putting the test papers down each person's desk. You know, you see some people I look over, you know, 60, 70. Somebody got like a 75. They say, oh, look at them, they're just smart, get 75. And then when I got 100, I remember some of the kids in the class, some of the knuckleheads like, oh, he got 100. How he get 100? You some type of nerd or something? And they was like, oh, he a nerd. And I'm like, psh. I'm like, I ain't no nerd. I was like, you know, I said, they was like, oh, and the other kids was like, yeah, he lucked up. Yeah, that's beginner's luck or whatever. You know, they ain't know me like that, but they was like, they ain't nothing. So what I started doing from that point on, which I don't recommend anybody to do, but I actually really dumbed myself down. So I purposely failed the next test. And what I did is I kept my grades kind of up and down. I didn't want to do it too crazy because I had to bring that report card home to mom. So, you know, the next test after that, I might get like I don't know, an 80. The next one after that, maybe you know, maybe get my grade up a little bit, get a 90, then might bring it on back, get like a 60 something. I basically could have aced the whole thing, got hundreds and everything, but, you know, like I said, because of that whole nerd factor, I wasn't trying to get that stigmatism, especially because at the end of the day, the high school I went to, the majority of it was Caucasian. It was, I would say, at least probably 75%. And, you know, the other 25% was other, like maybe Latino, you know, black, but the majority of it was a Caucasian high school. It was different. I mean, when you look in the high school parking lot, they had the teachers' parking lot and they had the student parking lot. The student parking lot had some cars in there because down south, you know, you're kind of far away from stuff depending on where you live, a couple miles. So by the time kids turn 16, when you can get your driver's license, hey, they already had cars. Their parents had cars waiting for them. I'm looking in the student parking lot, I'm seeing Corvettes and different type of cars. You know, the kids that had money anyway. Those are usually the kids that came from Virginia Beach. You know, where I lived, I was in Chesapeake, so right in the borderline of Norfolk, but basically in the hood. But anywho, and the projects that we live in, actually, in our area, I think it was considered the second worst. There was a first worst projects that lived next to us, but we was like considered the second worst. And you know how you know it was pretty bad? My mother said she made friends at work, and they was like, oh, you know, you're kind of cool. I want to come over sometime and see you where you live. When she told them the name of our apartment complex, it was like, oh, nah, we can't do that. They were like, we sorry, we see you at work. You know, you see, we heard the rumors about that place. So, like I said, I dumbed myself down. I was trying to fit in the hood. I didn't want to stand out too much. I definitely didn't want to be labeled as a nerd. So, like I said, I dumbed myself down, which was one of the worst things I could do. Then another issue I had was the fact that rumors spread quick, because you're in that school like that, most of these kids, they knew each other because they progressed. The junior high was not too far from the high school. Most of the kids went from the junior high to there. So I was a new kid. And it's like the word got around. Everybody was like, he's from New York. He's from New York. It's like they already knew I was from New York before I even opened my mouth. And down there, they was discriminating against people from New York. But I kind of understood when I heard the reason. It was like people from New York, they come, they loud. There's like, for some reason, everybody who comes from New York always claim they from Brooklyn. And me, I never claimed that. I don't believe in, pump faking or just, but that's not actually the correct use of the word. But I don't believe in, I don't believe in faking jacks. You know what I mean? I'm going to be straight up with people. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm from Queens. And it was like, oh, Queens, what part? Cambridge Heights. A lot of people didn't know. I never heard of that. I think around the time Nas is really blowing up, so people heard of stuff like Queens, Queensbridge, but they never heard of Cambridge Heights. But I'm proud to be where I'm from. I don't care. I'm going to keep it real. Hell, if I came from, I don't know, the middle of nowhere, Cuchahala, whatever, Idaho, let's just say, whatever. I'm just making that up, but I would claim it proudly, man. Wherever I'm from is where I'm from. I believe in keeping it real, always keeping it in the 100. So I'm like, man, look, I'm from Cambridge Heights, whatever. And then some people was like, oh, you got to watch them people from New York. There's a bunch of pickpockets and thieves. So they already discriminated against me. So off the jump, people wasn't really rocking with me. But in one of my classes, I remember I said, okay, this is high school, it's a little different. Let me go ahead and just tell some jokes. I'm going to pick up where I left off, from junior high. So I get in and I tell a joke. The class don't laugh. Now I said, okay. I said, not everything you say is going to be funny, although I felt that it was. So I waited some time. I told like one or two more jokes. I noticed they just looking at me. And they like, and it's not necessarily like, I found out later, people was like, yeah, it's not, they was like, people really, like I said, they don't know what to think about you. You come from New York. We've dealt with people from New York before. A lot of times they have this attitude about them. So people off the jump already discriminate against me. So I kind of already didn't stand a chance. My reputation was already like, they looking at me kind of shaky because of where I'm from. So I just said, whatever. I said, I see what it is. So I'm just going to lay back in the cut. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to just, get with the program, see what's what. And then actually what I kind of did was I kind of switched up my style. I said, all right, I said, they ain't rocking with me. They're going to discriminate against me anyway. I said, well, if I'm not going to be able to tell the joke and they ain't going to laugh with me, I guess they're going to laugh at me. So I did kind of crazy stuff. I started dressing a little crazy. I said, whatever. I said, you know what? I also said that this is an opportunity. I said, they already underestimated me. And since they're going to think that about me, I said, okay. I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed them material or present myself the way I want to. Almost kind of like clown-like, not, but to the point where I said they don't know, because when they're kind of, because I mean, especially in math class, dudes used to crack jokes, and I used to actually dumb myself down, play ignorant. Like, dudes was talking about, yeah, you ever run the train, this and that and this, I'm not going to get into that, what it is. you know, I try to keep this kind of neutral, kind of G-rated. But for those who know what it is, you know, I played dumb. I said train. I said, oh, in New York sometimes I rode the train. You mean that? And they was like, you don't know what that is. And they was laughing, and you know, they started clowning a little bit. But what I was doing, I said, okay, I said, they think I'm dumb. I said, I'll play that. I said, I can play the dumb role when I need to, because you know, sometimes you play a sucker to catch a sucker. So I said, whatever. I said, why y'all joking me? I said, y'all giving me material. And besides that, I'm like, I need to hear every joke that somebody could say against me, almost like the 8 Mile like Eminem did. So I was like, so later on, I can flip it on people. So I'm like, oh, you gonna say this and this because that's what you think about me? So, you know, so one, it's like it's taking away the power. Almost like how, you know, black people like to say the N-word because it took away the power because it was used against us. So I said I was gonna do that. So I kind of became the joke. But, you know, I was doing it strategically. But anywho, you know, like I said, you know, and like I said, any kids that may be watching this video, don't follow that. Like, you know, I tell this as a cautionary tale. You're smart, be who you are. Don't be afraid to, you know, to show how smart you are to, you know, to the world. Present yourself how you are. But, you know, like I said, it was a culture shock. I was in the hood, whatever. I didn't always make the best decisions. As smart as I thought I was, that was pretty stupid of me. But I mean, it is what it is. It's my story. It's part of my past. Can't change that. So, you know, high school was kind of crazy. But a lot of people wasn't rocking me. But what was interesting is, you know who messed with me at the school? It was the basketball team and the football team. So when we go to the lunchroom, you know, a lot of people, it's almost like it's kind of cliquish. You know, you have cool kids. You had another group was supposed to be the karate kids. Believe it or not, they were the martial arts. A lot of them was in the taekwondo. You had this group. Then you had the basketball team, the football team. So I started chilling with the basketball and the football team. And as they got to know me, they was like, yo, one guy told me, he said, yo, you know what, to be honest with you, he said people was like, you was from New York and this and that. And they had all these, you know, preconceived ideas about you. He was like, you actually pretty cool. So I was laid back. I'd kick it with them, you know. Hell, sometimes I didn't feel like going to get my lunch. I would actually, you know, pay one of them to get my lunch. When I say pay one of them, back then lunch was like, it was $1 a day. But it was like 10 cents if you wanted a cookie. And it was like 5 cents if you got a burnt cookie. It was something like that. So I know it's crazy, but back then, believe it or not, that was a lot of money. So if you got good cookies for lunch, it's like, oh, they got money, they got the good cookies. And when I first got down there, my mom, you know, she had a savings, so it was like, it was nothing. She would give me maybe like $2 at first. So I was like, all right. I was like, shoot, I can get a couple of good cookies. So I'd be like, oh, you go get my lunch for me. You know what I mean? Here's a 10 cents. Go get yourself one of the good cookies. And it's like, he getting me one of the good cookies? So one of the football and basketball team, they like, yo, I go get it for him. So they would go get my lunch for me. I just sit there chilling. We'd be laughing, kicking it or whatever during lunchtime. So that was when we first got there. After, you know, it was hard for her paying the rent and going through everything, single parent. So after a while, I was getting burnt cookies like a mug. You know, I mean, she would do the best she can. Or, you know, after it went from $2 to maybe $1.50 to maybe, you know, $1.25 or something like that. So I'd be like, all right, let me get 2 good cookies. One good cookie for the dude to bring me the lunch bag. One good cookie for me to burnt one or something. But anyway, man, it was crazy times. But like I said, I call this high school blues because I had my ups and my downs. At first, I didn't have many friends there. And I never really had a whole lot of friends. I actually had a few people who I thought was my friend in the projects, which, you know how that go. First of all, one time I remember we had like, after school, my mom actually, she worked late. She wouldn't get home to probably like 7, 8 o'clock at night. So I get out of school at like around almost 3 o'clock or whatever it was. From like, you know, 3:30 or whatever I got home, 3:34 till like 8 o'clock. We had the house free. So I would have like 20 people up in the crib. We'd be in there, you know, kicking it, watching TV, extracurricular activities. I'm not going to get into that, but let's just say a horticulture, for those of you know what that is or whatever. But like I said, I try to keep this, you know, friendly in general, but at the same time, I want to bring you a reel, so I don't want to water down. But, you know, you get what I'm saying. I got into some things I shouldn't have been doing there, but, you know, then you find out everybody's not your friend. You got 20 people up in your house, then all of a sudden, you know, let's say you go to find your favorite CD one day, or, you know, back then I was listening to people like Spice One, MC8, stuff like that. Actually, I think that might have been more like 92, 93. That was probably after a year, so after I moved there. But anyway, you know, next thing you know, I'm looking, my Menace to Society CD disappeared. Whenever that came out, that actually might have been 93. I can't remember, man. That was so many years ago. But Anyway, like I said, I had to cut off some of those people. I couldn't no longer have 20 people in. I got it down to maybe about 3 or 4 that was just kicking in, and from there. But anyway, high school years, it wasn't the greatest. But what I did is, even though I dumbed myself down for school, once again, back then we had Borders books. And whenever I would get some birthday money or Christmas money, whatever, my mom would take me to the mall. I'd go to the bookstore, I'd get me a new book, and I would study stuff. I studied different, advanced concepts. I remember I was studying, like, I think it was quadrant math back when I was in, back around the time I was, like, in 5th grade, I think, 5th, 6th grade. Might have been, yeah. Might have been, no, it might have been around the time, 6 or 7, something like that. I don't remember. But I was studying, like I said, high school math. I started getting into a little bit of geometry back then. But the point was, I was keeping my brain up outside of school. But in school, I dumbed myself down. So it was, you don't realize the decisions that you're making in the present, how they're going to affect you in the future. But it is what it is. I know one thing, though. I did take the test for a specialized program in school to go get a trade, and it was they was going to take the kids. They had a bus that would come take us a couple days out the week to the trade school, which I had went in for electronics because I was in electronics. I mean, from the time I was young, I remember we had this little it was a Mork and Mindy radio. And back in the days, that was a TV show. The guy, Mork and Mindy, I think the dude was from outer space or something. It was like a little egg-shaped radio. So my mom had got me that. It had broke one time. So I remember it broke. I think I was like 9 years old. So I basically got a screwdriver, opened it up, and I went in and I looked at the circuit board and I actually fixed it. Didn't have any formal training or nothing, but I loved electronics. Somehow I fixed it and I closed it up, and everybody was shocked. They was like, this kid's a little genius or something, especially at a young age. So I was heavy in electronics and stuff like that. So I was excited when I got into it, but unfortunately, I had come down with mono. So mononucleosis, my temperature shot up to like 100 something. I almost died. My mother had to put me in a bathtub of ice, whatever. But the point is, when I had got mono, that's when I was supposed to start going to the, leaving the high school to go to the trade school. But I actually had to leave high school, and I had to be on homebound for a while I had the mono. So basically, I missed out on that. So I was looking forward to that. I said, I'm going to go there and I'm going to show up and show out. I'm going to do my thing because I love electronics anyway. I was like, I'm going to put this brain to use. But anyway, that's what it is, man. And all in all, not going to get too much into the high school, but I actually ended up dropping out. I dropped out in the 12th grade because I was actually on homebound. I think I was there for 9th and 10th. And if I remember correctly, it was actually in the 10th grade when I had got accepted into that electronic program. And that's when I was supposed to do that. And that's when I had got mono and I had did homebound, and I kept getting extended or whatever. And the doctors kept giving me extension. It wasn't because I was sick that long, but they was like afterwards too. I had this headache that had lasted. It went from 6 months to 8 months, whatever. But they kept extending the homebound. So the point is, when they stopped extending it, I was in the 12th grade and I ended up dropping out of high school. And I actually ended up getting my GED. Later on, I went on to college and took some courses or whatever. But that's getting way outside of the topic. So this basically breaks down the high school blues. And basically, I tell this story to tell you this. Like I said, never be afraid to be yourself, man. Just, like I said, don't worry what people saying, and they think you're a nerd, so what? Back then it was almost like a badge of shame. And I realized now that's a badge of honor. Look at the nerds when they come out of school. The nerds, they end up running Fortune 500 company CEOs. Not all of them, you know what I'm saying? But, call me, now if somebody say that or whatever, call me a nerd all you want. So what? I'm the coolest nerd you know. And what? But I wasn't really, back then, like I said, the peer pressure, high school, and the fact that I was in the projects, it's not, unfortunately, sometimes in the hood, it's not cool to be smart. But like I said, be yourself, man. Be that smart dude. And another thing is, I said, because nerds become victims. And like I said, the culture shock and the fact that you in the hood, you got enough pressure as it is. People, people around me, getting beat up for no reason. When we was in the projects, we would go to sleep with gunshots, and it got to the point, pow, 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 and I hear, I'd be like, oh, shoot. After a while, I knew what the gun was. I hear that, I'd be like, oh, damn, I'd be like, them boys are serious. That must be them Dig Parks over there. That was the #1 hardest projects, too, right next to it. He's like, them boys are serious. Must be them Dig Parks boys, them choppers, man. That's what they call the AK-47s. I hear, pap, pap. I'd be like, man, what's that, a little 380 or whatever? And you hear, boom. That'd probably be like the 50 cal. You'd be like, oh, that's Ray Ray and them up over there, man. Them boys are serious. They didn't came to put some work in and get busy. So it's crazy. And like I said, the hood is a whole different dynamics, man. But anyway, let's wrap it up. Not gonna drag it on. So this concludes the episode of High School Blues. So like I said, man, keep your brain up. Always keep your brain sharp. You know, that's like steel. Keep it sharp. Keep it on point. Do your thing. Don't worry about what the next person think. And if you're in a situation like that, man, just, you know, hey, man, find your way up out of it. You know what I mean? As far as like, you don't have a choice. Like, you know, you living in the projects, you coming up, you don't have a choice in your environment that you're living in. But you have a choice on where your mind is at. Just because you're there, you don't have to stay down. You can elevate your mind and eventually you can get yourself up out of there. Break generational curses, man. Like I said, it was new to me. I came from middle class. And I mean, I lived in New York most of my life. Other than that 1 year I spent on the West Coast over in Seattle, Washington. Then we moved back to NY and it was in VA. You know, like I said, they was making fun of me until my heat from New York. I was like, originally I was actually born in VA. But I didn't want to use it as a playing card because I was like, you shouldn't like me just because I tell you I was born there, whatever. I don't know if that would have made them like me anymore, but I don't play on that. And I'm like, you know, accept me for who I am. If not, you know what I'm saying? But I wasn't as bold back then, so, you know, still trying to find my place in the world. It was stressful. It is what it is. But like I said, man, be yourself. Elevate your mind, man. Stay on point like a sniper. Keep this right, man. Because like I said, you got two things in this world. Your word and your balls don't break it for no one. But you also got your mind, man. Got your mind. Keep that on point like a sniper. So, you know what it is. Another episode of LB Tales from the Hood. And I said last time after that last hiatus, it wasn't going to be too long. Life happens, man. It is what it is. Every day, life happens. Like they say, SHIT happens, life happens. So it is what it is. But I'm looking to drop more regularly, for real, for real. I was supposed to have now been on like the 20-something episode. I can't even know. I don't even remember what episode number this is. 5, 6, I don't know. But till next time, you know what we're going to do? Just chill to the next episode. LB, man, Tales from the Hood, and we out. Peace.